behind-the-scene clips are what's known as reference footage. Reference footage is used in animation all the time to make sure animated characters' movements, like walking and jumping, are realistic. Probably the most difficult scenes to animate are fight scenes, like the extremely complex head-to-heads in Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra.
Instead of just going on the ground on his butt, he actually drops down and he's like on his finger, there's like air, there's like wind.
There we go.
To animate them meant finding someone who could perform and choreograph multiple martial arts styles.
It was fun. I was the only person on the planet with my job for a hot minute.
That's Sifu Kisu, a master of martial arts and the fight choreographer and reference actor for Avatar: The Last Airbender. Kisu has over 40 years of experience in martial arts and has studied Taekwondo, karate, jiu-jitsu, Northern Shaolin-style kung fu, and more. Kisu worked on all 61 episodes of Avatar and collaborated with a team of martial arts experts on Korra. In Avatar, having a choreographer and reference actor was especially important because the Four Kingdoms used different fighting styles with their own specific movements. Kisu based each distinct bending style on a different martial art. The fluid movements of waterbending are based on Tai Chi. The spinning movements of airbending are taken from Bagua. The powerful movements of firebending are based on Northern Shaolin-style kung fu, and the sturdy, low center of gravity movements of earthbending are based on Hung Gar. The first step in creating these animated fight sequences is storyboarding, when the artists receive a script and draw rough sketches of an entire episode. The descriptions of fight scenes in scripts typically only include the broad strokes of the fight, so the director of the episode will often create the temporary choreography during this initial phase.
When we got to the actual fighting, who kicks, who punches, who's the aggressor and all that, oftentimes I do something like this where it's like Aang shoots air and I'll just do this or something, do a drawing that looks like that.
After storyboarding comes choreography, where Kisu met with the animation team to refine the choreography of the fight scenes. There were usually about 5 to 10 fight scenes per episode that had to be choreographed. Kisu says that in this first meeting, he would just pitch a series of movements that he thought would represent a certain type of bending. For example, Kisu said that if a firebending technique called for swinging flaming fists, he would suggest an appropriate movement, such as striking motions from double dagger form kung fu. Other animated shows have tried to mix magic and martial arts, but Kisu noted that they don't often use martial arts movements when conjuring magic. You can see this when comparing Avatar: The Last Airbender to other shows featuring supernatural powers, like some scenes from Dragon Ball Z.
It's like if I'm holding a stone in my hand like this and it jumps out of my hand and hits the camera, you're going to question that, right? But if I wind up and I make the motion and the antic of throwing that, then that's going to read more to something you can understand, right? We thought that would be important, that it should come from somewhere to go to somewhere. And I think that was one of the big contributing factors to the success of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
After Kisu and the director agreed on the choreography, they filmed the action. Kisu sometimes performed the fight choreography for 2 or more fighting characters separately. Animators would later take these shots and combine them into a single fight between characters. After filming, the artists took the footage and used it to add more detail, like specific poses, to their initial storyboards. The time it cost to do the reference filming was recouped by having an extremely accurate model for drawing. Ultimately, this led to a better final product, because the character poses were more accurate. The storyboard team sent the polished storyboards back to Kisu for review.
Then it'd be sort of a back and forth where maybe we'd come up with a new shot that we never talked about during the first meeting.
This process was repeated 2 to 3 times until everyone was satisfied with the result. Before sending the finished storyboards off to a team in Korea for the final animation, the director would film one final version of the fight with Kisu with all of the finalized camera angles.
It was going to be a wide angle. We had these bleachers in a little makeshift basketball court at Nickelodeon, and guys would crawl up there with the camera and get a down shot. We'd change to a wide angle and make it look like it was really far away. Like the fight with Zuko and Azula on the boat dock where she tried to scratch his face and had a fire battle. That was done on the front steps at Nickelodeon in front of the SpongeBob statue.
Storyboards aren't created for every frame. They're created for every 3rd frame of animation. So the reference footage made it easier for the animators to create the in-between frames that were missing. While having reference footage is ideal, Sometimes it was impossible to capture accurate live-action reference footage, mostly because the characters possess magical powers. Some fights in the show called for a movement that no real human could replicate, like this scene from Korra. In these situations, the martial artists would split up the action into several chunks, which would be stitched together in the final animation.
In the beginning credits for Avatar: The Last Airbender, when Zuko would do the big whirlwind kick with the flame and come down and hit the ground, at the time I was recovering from an injury, and so I couldn't do that kick. We call it a one-legged whirlwind kick. And so I literally rolled over someone's back, like someone bent over, and then I just rolled over that person's back. The opening credits for Korra, they show the airbender does this crazy thing where he kicks this way and lays back that way. I ended up just holding Brian in my arms, which is really funny.
It's this lifelike martial arts choreography and attention to detail that make the difference between static fight scenes like this and dynamic ones like this.